because we're doing this in a workshop style. Okay, so really that's the principle behind this, all right? And we'll talk about some other details once we all get going, and I'll be talking a little bit about rules of engagement, rules for combat archery, how to become authorized, all the rest of that kind of stuff. But for today, we're going to emphasize right off the bat just construction technique. And then I can answer questions as we're going once we get building on all this stuff. All right? So let's go ahead and begin with all this. There is a very stylized process to how we go about doing this. All right? It is kind of a pain in the butt to make your ammunition all by yourself. All right? You are actually better off building as a team in an assembly line. There are two reasons for this. The first one is everybody's doing something much like an assembly line, and it kicks out very fast. All right? With 5 or 6 people, you can kick out dozens and dozens of arrows in just a few hours. Okay? Whereas if you're doing it all by yourself, it's going to take you weeks to do the same job. All right? So that's number one. Number two is a little bit more insidious. We actually came up with this idea in Atlantia. We were putting together, we'd gotten our butts killed at Gulf Wars in the ravine battle. The king and the general, Alhara, had basically said, guys, we need combat archers. And so we all got together as a team. I was the actual captain of the team. And we got together and we kind of came up with this idea that, you know what, if we assembled all of our ammunition together, it would all be identical. You can share ammunition on the battlefield. You can hand it back and forth to each other. And everybody's ammunition is exactly the same weight, constructed in exactly the same manner. Just had different colors of tape on it, okay, to identify whose was whose, all right?
Now you can't glean.
You cannot glean. I'm not talking about
Yes.
that. I'm talking about sharing ammunition amongst one another, because some people shoot faster than others. Some people, when they die, they still have ammunition. You can pull that out of their quiver or whatever and use that ammunition. Well, as it turns out, because all of us have been shooting the exact same ammunition, 5 of us killed and killed and killed, because all the ammunition was identical. And if you think about it in terms of target archery, if you all had the exact same ammunition, that's exactly what you want. It's when you have different weight arrows that things start to be a problem, okay? So there are real advantages of coming together as a team and building together as a team, okay? So let's go ahead and let's get started. I'm gonna be going through the different steps. All right, the first thing that you need to do is you actually have to prepare the material for construction. And so, let's begin at the beginning, and when we get to the end, stop. All right. Now, this thing is actually pretty simple. This is called an Asgard APD. All right. Anybody that's ever accidentally been hit by a knock, all right, a real knock on a real arrow. I've had my hand sliced open by one of these things, all right? The knock of an arrow will cut you to pieces, all right? And one of the problems that you have with our arrows is they don't actually penetrate a body, which is a good thing because we don't want them penetrating a body. But the problem that you have here is that they bounce back, all right? And they bounce back into your friendlies, all right? And if you've got a knock without an APD and that thing comes back, it is going to go through the grill of the helmet, okay, or cut somebody's neck, do all kinds of damage to it, okay? And that's the reason why we use specialized APDs. I strongly recommend that you actually buy the constructed APDs from North Star Archery. They come in both left and right-handed. You cannot shoot a left-handed Asgard on a right-handed bow or vice versa. If you do, it's going to just catch and pop right down onto the ground. So you have to buy them specially, all right? Now, the requirement is it has to be glued on so that it stays on. Now, technically, you could just go ahead and pound the thing on with some super glue in there, and best of luck to you. In actual fact, they won't stay on at all. Problem that you have is you're dealing with fiberglass shafts, okay? And nothing sticks to fiberglass. All right? So what I'm going to be showing you, what's required is put some glue in there, pound it on. That's the requirement, and it won't work. All right? First time it gets inspected, somebody's going to grab onto it, give it a twist, and it's going to pop right off, and it's going to get rejected. First time in the field, I lost half of my ammunition for just that reason. So I'm going to be showing you some techniques on how to prepare the ass guard so it won't come off. And by God, they will not come off the way that I show you. All right? They will be perfectly safe. It would take a 500-pound gorilla to take one of these things off. All right? And I've got to tell you, it's not as bad now, but about 10, 13 years ago, knights would deliberately become combat archery marshals so they could inspect ammo, so they could grab onto these things and pull the ass guards off. So
He
that
did say
didn't
Asgard,
get to
not
play,
Asgard.
because they didn't want you
Okay.
out there shooting. All right? But by God, they ain't going to pull them off the way I put them on. All right? Okay. So the first thing that's done, one of the problems that we ran into was that if you just put the glue in and you pound them on, all right, air only compresses so much, all right? And then it's going to pop back off again, all right? So what you need to do is you have to have some way for the air to escape.
Vacuum.
You have to have some way for the air to escape while you're working on this. And so what you use is the smallest drill bit that you can use. I strongly recommend that you keep it way deep so that you don't drill all the way through the ass guard. Everybody, come around here. Somebody's going to be taking this station, so know how you're doing it. It's very simple, all right? Come to the back and carefully pop a hole into it. Really?
Did you win a trip?
Okay. So we put one down low on one side, and you want to put one high on the other side. This one is now ready for assembly. We're going to put it off to the side. That's all it takes. All right? Okay. What was that?
That's you.
She's streaming.
Live.
Okay. Now, as I said, one of the problems that you have with these shafts is nothing sticks to these damn things. So what you need to do is you need to prepare the shaft in such a way that it's going to stick better than what you normally have. All right? So, having vices is good. What I like to use, you can use a normal, you can use a file to do this. All right? A little rat tail file or something like that. I prefer to use a Dremel. Okay? What you want to do is you want to rough these out. Okay? So that you have more surface area in there for the super glue to glue onto. Okay? So basically, all you do is cut some slits into it. Don't go too deep because you don't want to weaken the material. That's all you need to do. Everybody step forward and take a look at what I just did. What this is doing is it's increasing the amount of surface area that's inside of there. Don't need to go crazy with this, all right? And you don't have to be fancy. Okay, now, the next thing that you have to do is you need to get that UMHW on. This is not so much of a problem with the ass guard, all right? But it is a problem with the UMHW. What I'm talking about is the bullet core, okay? Getting this thing to go over this surface is a pain in the ass, all right? So what you do is you bevel it slightly. Now, under no circumstances at all should you use any kind of a pencil sharpener or taper tool to do this. Okay, here's a little story. Second time I went to Gulf Wars, all right? Somebody decided this would be a lot quicker if we just used a taper tool. Okay, so they did. And the tapering went way down onto the shaft. Well, somebody popped off one of those tips. One of the marshals popped off one of those tips and looked at it and said, how many of these rounds of ammunition did you do this to? And he said, well, these several hundred. He said, they're all rejected. Problem is, when a UMHW comes off, you basically have a combat tip, one that kills people. So you can't do that. All right? All you need to do is bevel it off a little bit. Dremel works great. A file works good. That's all that's necessary. Take a look. So this one's just got grooves cut in it. That one has grooves and it's beveled off.
Can I feel?
That is fiberglass. You don't want to touch it.
No.
That's right.
Okay.
Because
You don't want to breathe this.
you don't want to breathe it.
I've got a mask here. Whoever's going to be doing this, you don't want to be breathing fiberglass. It is glass and it goes in your lungs, and lungs don't like glass. Okay? All right. So now, the shaft is ready for assembly. Okay? So we've gotten that. We've gotten that. All right. Over here.
You have Girl Scout cookies.
We don't need the cookies. Now, there are different instructions out there, but the preferred method of doing this, all right, is a little bit different, all right? One would think that what you want to do is put circular discs on here, and that is wrong.
What?
You don't want to put circular discs on. All right, we're going to make discs to go onto this thing, but you don't want to make them circular. You want to make them square. All right? The reason is, as you will see when we begin the actual assembly process, when you go ahead and squeeze this in with the strapping tape, all right, by having it square, it actually adds more material into it and gives better compression. And your arrow will last longer, and you will not have any hard edges off to the side. One of the things that's inspected is to see whether or not you've got any hard edges from here. Because if an arrow comes in here at a bad angle, it's going to hit with that hard edge, and you don't want that. Okay? So what you want to do...
Thrusting tips for swords and spears are made the exact same way.
Exactly.
In a very similar way.
This is where the boulder point is different than the...
Get that, will you?
This is the step that you don't have to do with the boulder point.
What's that?
This is the step that you don't have to do with the boulder point.
No, that is correct.
It's
With a
on
boulder
the-
point, you don't have to worry about any of this. So this thing is 1.25 inches in diameter. What you want to have then is about 1.5 inches square. Okay? That's the reason why I have this thing here. All right? I do believe that's 1.5 inches right there. So,
I have a pencil.
you have a what?
I have a pencil if you want to like draw squares.
You know what? We don't have to get so fancy.
We got that.
So when you're going to get in here, that's 1.5 inches right there, which is just the right size that we want. Okay?
I did post this to the class, so when you're done, it will actually upload the whole video.
Okay.
For standard insulate foam, this is closed cell foam, you need 2 of these.
It is important to use closed cell foam and not open cell foam. That's
Okay.
that's true of all type
Yep.
of tips
Is that
in the
like just a
SC.
yoga mat or?
Yoga mat as long as it's closed cell foam.
The best stuff to buy is go down to Walmart and buy a sleeping pad.
Yeah.
Okay? I think I've had the sleeping pad, and I've been cutting this thing up for helmets and for combat archery ammunition and all kinds of other things. I think this one pad has lasted me about 15 years.
You can see the former helmet, the pieces
That's
that
right.
have gone into a helmet.
So eventually what's going to happen is this thing is going to go right on top of here. Okay? Now it's taped in a very particular way, and then when it gets compacted in, it's going to squeeze in, and it's going to have a great spongy feel to it. All right? And it's going to be nice and safe and nice and soft all the way around.
How many do you
You
use?
use 2 discs.
2 discs.
Okay, well, two squares. Always, you must use a minimum of 2. All right? Okay. So those are those 2 pieces. We have the ass guard ready. We have all the pieces that we need for assembly of the actual blunt. All right? We can begin the assembly process now. All righty? So, let's go ahead and do that. First thing we're going to do is we're going to put on the ass guard. Okay? This is our beveled in, so we don't care about that one. Put it in the vise. Jermaine, your super glue, please.
In the bag.
It's over there.
There's
Somebody-
2 different
it's in that
kinds.
bag.
There's regular super glue, and there's also the gel. I didn't
Yeah.
know which one you would prefer, so I got one of each.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know what? I kind of prefer the gel. It's not as liquidy and doesn't flow all over the place. But really, as far as the strength of this goes, it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. I definitely prefer using the gel when I'm fletching.
Yep, that's what I use is the gel.
So yeah, whichever one is left, I
Yeah.
want to take home because we're making arrows in a couple weekends. Yay! For field archery.
Thank you. I can't use my hands, which is why I do this. All right, now, you really can't put too much inside of here, but you can waste a lot, all right? The real trick, you know you've got just the right amount inside of there. When you pound this thing on and out of the rear section, it'll just barely bubble out. Then you know you got it just right. When it comes under pressure like that, it will actually vaporize a little bit and it'll bubble out just a touch. If you got a whole bunch come squirting out of there, you're using too much, back it off a little bit. If you're not getting enough in there and you have nothing coming out, you don't have enough. Okay? That's the basic way that you learn how to do this. All right? You notice I've got this thing set up in here so that we can pound on it. All right? I got a piece of wood and a rubber mallet. You really do want to use a rubber mallet or a plastic mallet. You don't want to use a hammer. Okay, so
Why don't you want to use a hammer?
it's just with a rubber mallet, you're going to get a better surface area on that, and you're not going to hit it with an angle, and it won't split this. Okay? Okay. So we're going to squeeze in. Does this thing have an opening to it?
I have no idea. It's brand new.
Yeah, I can't remember. It takes me years to go through one of these bottles. Well, yes, it does.
And but does that tip have a big type of thing?
Huh. I'm not terribly impressed with the super glue.
It's brand new.
Yeah, it is brand new.
Blame Target.
But, boy, that doesn't look very good. You may be returning that.
Where I got 2. The other one's gonna be dried out as well.
Yeah, I was just thinking that too.
That one looks better.
Yeah, you see, this is much better. Okay, gonna squeeze in just a small amount. Gonna set it on. Go quickly. Hold that shaft for me, will you?
We're not doing phrasing, Dunker.
What?
Are we no longer doing phrasing?
We are no longer doing
We're
phrasing.
no longer doing
Maybe
phrasing.
you're not.
I'm confused.
Don't worry about
That's
it.
okay, I'll explain it later.
Okay. You're not missing
Yeah, I
much.
got myself.
Oh.
Me too. He needs a Band-Aid.
Okay.
I have
Looks
a
like I
first aid
didn't
kit.
quite put in enough, but that's gonna be nice and firm. Okay.
I have a first aid kit.
I'm sure Anna has that.
Where are you going?
To get a bandage.
For you.
My wife's in the bath.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not then.
No.
Wow. I split that one open really well. Okay, so
problem with
that's
not having
it.
a nervous
Technically, that is done. It ain't gonna hold. All right. No, I'm gonna need to get a better one than that. Okay. So next up, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and put on the UMHW. It's done exactly the same way. All right. So grab a UMHW.
Do you have to taper that into?
I'm sorry.
Did you taper that into or no?
He only tapered one
This
end.
one's already tapered.
Oh,
The other end is not tapered
Got it.
Doesn't need to be. All right.
because there's holes. This one doesn't have holes.
It's okay.
Yeah, but he's starting to bleed all over the arrows. At least take a Kleenex.
Meh.
It's a blooded project now. There's been a blood sacrifice.
It's true. It's true.
Wait a minute.
Put blood, sweat, and tears.
Owen. Owen.
It's not really a.
Yeah.
Get it on.
Here,
Count it on
here.
with that.
Use that at least to wipe the finger. Up here.
Do you need to
Band-Aid.
glue it on? Did you
Good. Get the dead blood on.
did he
only-
put glue in it?
Yes, he put
Okay.
He put
I
glue in.
looked
The
away.
only reason I was concerned is that the blood was starting to drip.
Your angle, love.
Remind me to ask him why we wouldn't do the blunts first, because then the blunts could be on the ground
And you could.
and not a potential.
That's a good idea. That's the one.
Yeah,
Sure.
because there's potential to damage the Asgard.
Really think we should roll with that?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sort of liking that.
and we can say they're Asgardians.
Doctor, if looks could kill, you'd be dead twice.
You know, of course, that my wife has Balder blunts.
Yeah.
What?
Yes.
I do.
Yes.
I'm confused.
Baldur's an
Okay,
Asgardian.
Baldur's- yeah,
Don't worry about it.
it's okay. It's fine.
Has to do with Norse mythology, Asgardians, because these are Asgards. And
Owen, is it okay for your pipe to be rained on?
that's not my pipe.
That's not,
Or whomsoever's
That's
pipe?
really-
Let me explain this very clearly. I have no worries about that pipe because it's not mine.
And now it's wet, so he'll have to share yours.
thank you, Jermaine.
You're welcome.
Flipping nervous Norrises.
I didn't care.
Dude, it wasn't me.
Yeah, you wouldn't care.
I only
No, I'm serious. You're a soldier. You've seen wounds before.
Yeah, but you're dripping on the arrows, and they're white.
They're blooded now.
They're not going to be white for
So,
long.
taping all
Yeah, I
this.
know.
Yes.
Question for you.
Right.
It's okay.
Why
The
would we
blood will
not
be
put
next
the
to
blunt
them,
on first?
and then
It doesn't really
when
matter.
they're shot
Okay,
at
because
people,
then
They'll look
the
real
blunt's
electric.
going
it'll
down
be
like a hammer against
Ryrid's
the other
blood.
end.
Yeah.
So it'll be infused
it's
like a
with his
can-
essence.
Okay.
Ooh, I like this.
So he could
So
bleed
now
all
we've
over.
got this thing assembled. All right.
We're done.
We're done with this piece.
Oh, did we
all
ask
right.
why we couldn't do the blunt first?
We
It
did.
doesn't matter.
He said it
Okay.
doesn't matter.
Doesn't really matter. I
Sorry.
think yeah, it's probably a good idea. Didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. So we've got these two on here. Now we're going to add a little bit to this. All right. We're going to go over to our taping station, and we are going to work.
Tape's there
On this.
in the bag as well.
I've got a
Okay.
roll already out. Come on over, Dave. Now, the first thing we did was we roughed out the fiberglass. All right? Not required, but it helps it to go on. This was a technique that me and a couple of other combat archers have come up with, and it's almost become standard throughout the SCA ever since then, because it makes it all but impossible to get this blood back off again. Okay? So, what we're going to do is we are going to be putting one single piece of tape in a very particular way, all right, that wraps an X to the inside and an X to the outside. And you always want to start and end on the shaft. Okay? So I'm going to show how this is done. Now, long ago in the days of yore, that's not the right kind of tape. Yes, the strapping tape, please.
So it's like rapier tips.
Long ago in the days of yore, it was possible to get half-inch or quarter-inch strapping tape. All right, you just can't buy the stuff anymore. So you got to fabricate your own quarter-inch strapping tape. It's a real pain in the butt, but there you go. I made the utility knife, right?
Got nails.
Yeah, of course I cut my nails yesterday.
Utility knife.
Doing this without your left thumb is slightly more difficult.
You need about 14 inches in order to do this. Approximately. I might grab a pair of scissors. It's a little bit easier doing it that way. See if I can cut myself open again. Hold on.
That was what they were thinking.
Yeah.
The hardest thing about this is don't let it fold up while you're working with it. Okay? Now we have two pieces.
I was like,
Begin on the shaft. Wrap it a couple of times. Bring it over. Wrap again.
Don't let it fold on you, preferably.
It really doesn't matter that much if it folds up here. You just want to have the adhesion down here on the shaft.
It's actually a little bit stronger if it folds up in that area because then the.
Notice we have a square, we have an X on the inside and an X on the outside.
It's more of a
And we start and end, really got to get through this, on the shaft. Now, notice what's important about this. Nothing sticks to fiberglass, but the tape will stick to itself. And that's why this thing is mechanically working the way it does. All right? Now, I'll tell you, this is what gets damaged the most when you're out on a combat field. All right? You must inspect this. All right? And take your strapping tape with you. Okay? Because you are going to be repairing these. And every couple of years, I take all of mine completely apart and retape them. All right? But you do that, you are not taking this thing off.
Do you re-glue them as well or just retape them?
Oh, I just retape them. You don't really, unless they're really loose, you don't need to. The glue is just holding it on tightly, you know. It is a requirement. You put it in there, but technically speaking, that glue isn't doing crap anymore, all right? It's the tape that's doing all the work. You cannot get this off. Take it off.
poke it out.
Yeah, it's good.
That bad boy is not coming off. All right? Okay, at this point, we're actually ready to do the primary taping. All right? Okay. Problem is, we got these things laying around over there. All right? And we're going to hang them off someplace so that we don't lose them.
If it came off, you were in it.
Once again, this is one of the reasons why you want to do this in an assembly line. Okay. Now, we can go on back over here. We can work here because we have a second vise. What we are going to do is we are going to tape the UMHW. All right. Somebody grab those two squares for me, please. Okay. What you want to have happen is you want to tape the first piece on, all right? You want to take the first piece on and make sure that you're down the shaft a bit, all right? Because it's all going to get taped up together and reinforced, all right? You don't want this thing ending here. You want it ending about right there. So you need about 6 inches, maybe a little bit more, 8 inches of tape to get this thing to go on the correct way. Please. This one, you want them to lay flat. So, gather around so you can see. What you do is tape over the center. Make sure you stay centered onto the UMHW. And notice we're way down the shaft, okay? We want to have good adhesion on that. Okay, that's one. Cross them over.
It's infusing the arrows with its essence. Leave it be. It twisted.
Just liquid steak. All right, I'll finish this one up since this is grossing you all out.
I'm not worried about it.
Doesn't bother me, brother.
You don't have hepatitis, right? We're good. Or the AIDS.
Fine.
But ew.
Not really.
Whose arrows are these going to be?
Mine. Mine.
Do you
See?
care?
No.
There you go.
As I'm
Okay.
telling you.
Now remember how I said we
No.
wanted to have
You
these
let 'em.
things as squares. Notice how they're diagonally offset like this. Now watch what happens to this blunt as I start to squeeze it in.
I don't mind the blood. I just makes it more realistic when you're in the battlefield.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I'm going with.
A lot easier
It's the
for
bandage.
touch and thumb, yeah.
There's a garbage.
Having this thumb like this is not helping.
Want to be rude, stuff?
Because then I'd be bleeding.
I can arrange that. Come on.
I'm sure there's plenty of people who'd offer.
Thank you.
It's okay, Jermaine's got it.
Jermaine, did you bring the electrical tape as well?
Yeah, it's in the bag. Everything's in the bag. It's in the bag, baby.
Okay.
You see what you get? Okay? Great compression on this. Got a nice circle around there, and you're good. Okay? We're going to put on another piece to finish the wrap, and then we're going to bring it down the shaft. Because remember, nothing sticks to fiberglass. The tape will stick to itself.
It's not bleeding back. I got a.
And you can see why I wanted the first pieces to come down the shaft, because I wanted to wrap around these
They'll
things.
stick to each other.
Okay? So what you're doing is you've got the tape underneath actually being held by the tape around. Okay? Go ahead, pass that around. Feel how that feels.
And then over there.
We were.
See what we're doing here?
Started.
Don't pick, just pass.
Leave it. Don't worry about it.
Dude, I'm looking.
Now finally, what we're going to do is we're going to cover it all up. Okay? Now, one time it was a requirement that you had to use strapping tape on the actual shafts. They've changed that rule since then, all right? And you can use electrical tape. It's kind of half and half. The electrical tape does not last as long as a strapping tape, but the electrical tape goes on smoother than the masking tape does. Also, once you start getting the
Strapping tape.
strapping tape,
You said masking.
sorry, the eventually you will get damage to the tape that's on the surface, all right? And if that happens, you do have to replace it. I'll explain what's going on here in just a moment. It is easier to take the electrical tape off. All right. I mean, basically, the only way you can do this with the strapping tape is you've got to try to get it off the best that you can, then use a razor to get the rest off, then use acetone to clean up the shaft until it's completely clean and dry, and then you can go ahead and redo it. With the electrical tape, it'll actually, most of the time, just pull right off, okay? And you will get damage to this. So what's this all about, all right? It is to protect the actual stuff that's holding it all together. That's what it's there for, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna completely tape up this head, and it's covering the strapping tape that is actually structurally holding the whole thing together, and it protects it, all right? So on the shaft, this is different. Different shafts have been used over the years, all right? At one time, they actually allowed using wooden shafts
Yes, they
very
did.
early,
It was
okay?
dangerous as
And
hell.
that was not good, all right? One of the problems that you have with that kind of a shaft is it can actually be damaged. We've all seen this, those of you who are archers. We've seen this before where a shaft could be damaged and it actually, the arrow comes apart in the air as it's flying, okay? And then it hits its target, which is some guy on the other side, all right? And that is not good. So the standard has gone to the fiberglass shaft. The fiberglass shaft is used for the same kind of reason that we use the rattan shaft. Does anybody know why we use a rattan? I'm going to let you answer that. Why do we use that?
Because it doesn't splinter.
What does it do?
It burns.
It just burns, which means it just turns to mush. Okay? Very similar with fiberglass. Okay, now you can't use rattan that's this thin. But with fiberglass, what ends up happening is it'll just splinter a little bit. Now the good thing about that is that if you've got some tape on that, it holds those splinters in. That's number one. Number two, if you ever watch a marshal inspecting the ammunition, what he will do is he will grab onto both ends, twist, and then bend. And if you've got any splintering on that fiberglass, it pops right through the tape. Okay? That's what we are looking for. And that's what you should be looking for every time that you inspect your own ammo. You are responsible for your own ammunition. So that's what you're doing. So we put the tape on the surface, okay, so that if there is splintering and you don't discover it, or if the splintering happens while it's in flight, it can't harm anyone. That's what we're doing here, okay? Alrighty. So this gets to be something of a pain, all right? There is no question about it. And with my thumb being the way it is, let's go. What colors do you want?
The black and blue.
Yes, I understand. Which one do you want on the shaft?
Doesn't matter. Either way.
Make a call.
Blue, black,
Fine.
green.
Don't make a call.
Purple.
Grab one.
Red.
Start.
All right, so what we'll do is,
Chartreuse.
which is one of the real advantages of having a very particular stylized way of doing this is that people can identify your ammunition. I have had ammunition come home to me after years from across the country because they know exactly what Ryryd's ammo looks like.
That you're supposed to put your name on it.
That is actually only a requirement at Penzing.
I thought that was.
No, it is not. It's something I require, okay, because it's a good idea anyway. But no, it is not a requirement except for at Penzing. Now, some other kingdoms may do it. At Penzing, your ammo will be rejected if you don't put your name on it. We'll talk about that in a moment. Okay? All right.
I thought that was a requirement at Estrella too.
I have not seen that requirement. I've never had anybody check at Estrella to make sure that the names were even there. Now, if you're at Penzing, they will check your names. Okay? And it has to be legible. All right? But I have not seen it at any other war. Okay?
I thought I saw it in the guidebook for one of the others.
Give me a cut.
Oh man.
You need about 6 inches?
Right here?
Yeah.
What? I don't want to do this. I don't want to be responsible for cutting stupid.
Just enough blood.
I'm like, oh man.
Okay.
So are you compressing on this as well, or just?
Just a little
taping
bit. It really doesn't need a lot.
Okay.
burst out laughing.
There's certain
It's
things that
not,
you know about.
it's not funny if you have to explain it.
Where's the book?
The blue's right there.
With the UMHW, you must completely cover the strapping tape. With the Baldar, you are only required to put an X on.
What is the difference?
A UMHW can come apart. A Baldar can't.
Got it. Do you run into the same glue and compression issue with the Balder points?
With the what?
With the Balder points?
Those things are almost indestructible.
We have the same.
So you saw 4 pieces of tape carefully placed on will completely cover your head. And now you know that what we're going to end up with is we're going to go ahead and put blue shafts on this, blue on the shafting. Okay, blue shafting, black and blue on the tip. Jermaine.
Okay, really quickly.
Yeah.
It is a requirement.
Okay.
Society Handbook. Combat archery ammunition. All ammunition must have the owner's name and kingdom displayed clearly on it.
That's new. Or maybe it's not new. You know, it's just never been enforced. I know I always put mine on because I always shot at Penzek.
Yes.
Okay?
I saw it somewhere.
I will talk about that in just a moment. There's some
Congratulations.
important elements to this. Thank you. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to tape the shafting. I'm not going to do this. All right, not with this thumb bleeding all over hell. Okay, somebody else is going to have to do this. Do not put any of the tape up at the top. Okay? Now, I'm not sure if they still require this. At one point in time, we'll have to check on this. You had to have a blue band if it was a right-handed arrow. Okay? You had to take one piece of blue tape and put it on the tail of the Asgard. Okay, that way you didn't inadvertently pick up a left-handed Asgard. It was a really bizarre rule because at the time they didn't make left-handed Baldars. So, Asgards. So it really didn't make a lot of sense, but that's what they required. Basically, it requires 2 pieces of tape. Somebody's going to step in and they're going to have to do this for me. What you want to do is you want to go ahead and run it all the way from here all the way to the back. Okay? Have one piece of tape run down and then the other piece of tape. My recommendation is go ahead and cut it to the appropriate length, put it on at the edge, and carefully fold it over.
Does it go on top of this tape right here, or just right
It
up
doesn't have to.
Okay.
It does not have to because obviously you're not going to get any splintering from there. Okay? Alrighty? So somebody go ahead and jump in here. It's easier with 2 people. Use the blue tape for this purpose. Okay?
So you wanna?
So, Violetta, if you would please.
So you're gonna go to here, or do
Yeah,
you just-
take it all the way up.
So do you wanna cut it for me?
Fairly similar to swords.
It is very similar. Very similar.
Yeah, right there's good.
Much of the construction technique was really based on the same thing.
Like using the knife to cut the tape.
I know. We should use scissors.
Do you have scissors instead to cut
I
the
do.
electrical tape?
Thank you.
Oh, did we cut too short?
No.
Yes.
We cut it too short.
Because electrical tape stretches.
It stretches.
Yes. But you could go ahead and
Should I
with that
stretch
one.
it?
No.
No, I don't need my scissors.
But you could go ahead and put it on with that one.
So while you're doing that, let me read through the combat archery rules. All ammunition must have the owner's name and kingdom
Oh,
displayed
it
clearly
turned
on
out, it
it.
turned out to be the right size.
No ammunition may be more than 10% covered in the color yellow,
Yeah.
because we use yellow for marshalling sticks.
What's that?
No ammunition may be more than 10% covered in the color yellow.
Right. That's because of experimental ammunition.
Ah, okay.
Experimental ammunition is yellow.
No ammunition, no metal can be used as ammunition construction material.
Okay.
Fiberglass,
You're
plastic,
just gonna turn it.
we're good.
You got my, oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't wanna get cut.
Yeah, neither do I.
Oops. Alright.
Yeah, we'll take that utility knife back over because that's best for
The foam
the
pieces.
pad.
Yeah, about there.
Ammunition has a maximum length of 28 inches from the back of the blunt to the string acceptor on the knock.
Good.
That's the official name for Asgards.
String acceptor.
String acceptor. Obviously,
String
Asgards
acceptor.
are much better. Optionally, ammunition may have fletches as long as they are securely attached and made of soft material. Fletches may not protect farther than half of an inch from the shaft. May not project.
Looks fabulous.
Very pretty.
Let's not confuse matters. This is the way we're going to make ammunition.
Oh, he's just reading us the rules here.
Yeah. Okay.
You can find the rules in the Marshal's Handbook.
So, this is a completed arrow. This thing is legal and safe. It's all ready to go. Okay?
I approve.
Now, the only thing that you need to do is put your name on it. Normally you put it back here. This is important. Okay? I ran into this one myself. All right? Use a laser printer. Okay? Do not use an inkjet. Especially if you're going to go to Pennsic or Gulf Wars.
It's
It's humid.
Moist.
All right? And what ends up happening, and this happened to me, okay, is I show up, it hangs out there for about a week, I take it to Marshall's Point, and they say, there's nothing on this name tag. And all you see is just this blurry mess. That's what a laser jet does. I mean, that's what an inkjet does, okay? Even if it's all taped up, okay? Use a laser jet. If nothing else, okay, take a little thumb drive down to Kinko's and print out one lousy sheet. What I get are the really tiny labels that you can buy, all right? And one sheet will handle like 4 dozen arrows, all right? And go ahead and just print that out. Then you put it onto the back here, have your SCA name on there and your kingdom, okay? Tape it on, take a bit of packing tape,
Clear.
all right, and wrap it. That way it doesn't get torn and damaged and all the rest of that kind of stuff. And you're done.
Get moist.
That's it. Okay? That's how we make ammunition. Okay? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to break up, and everybody's going to take their own little spot. And they're going to work there for a while, then they're going to rotate. Okay? So everybody's going to be working on different workstations. All right? I'm going to be walking around here. We're going to be talking a little bit about combat archery and stuff like that. But I'm going to keep my bloody thumb away from this from now on. Okay? And
Smart.
we will make the rest of Jermaine's ammunition. Okay?
Yay.
So, find positions. Who wants to take taping station? We need 2 people on the taping station.